Hello and welcome to PTV's The Screening Room. I'm Mike Sutton. With me today are my fellow panelists, Michael Portillo, Levi Ridgway, and Karis Tobias. Today we will be discussing the new film, Fired Up. It centers around two high school football stars that opt out of 1st and 10 for a spot at cheer camp. Michael, let's start with you for 1 minute. What do you think about the film?
Well, if you had American Pie band camp and Bring It On made a baby, it would be called Fired Up. This movie stars Eric Christian Olsen, who plays the same role as he did in Not Another Teen Movie. Yes, Not Another Teen Movie, a film way back in 2001. So why is a 32-year-old still playing a high school role? Simple. Hollywood tradition, and much the same with his co-star, 21-year-old Nicholas D'Augusto. Basically, these two guys are on a conquest to go to cheerleading camp to score with as many girls as they can. Oddly enough, this is considered a female target audience. Go figure. But with all things aside, this is a mediocre film with mediocre actors.
Levi, what do you think?
Well, Fired Up got me fired up in a whole wrong way. Pretty much, I mean, the movie poster says it all. F you. And it's really telling the audience that whole thing. Just, F off. This film was going to be absolutely horrid. I thought it was absolutely horrible. I was contemplating halfway through the entire film to getting up, walking over to Cool Hand Luke's and developing a drinking problem. It was that bad. Just to flush how bad this film was out of my head. I could feel the brain cells dying inside of here. And just, it was absolutely atrocious. The acting was completely dead. There was only one saving grace I found out in there, and that was Juliette Joglio, who played Poppy, the conniving sister that gets them into the cheer camp to begin with. All in all, I'd like to erase this from history if at all possible. Thankfully, it's not doing that well in the box office, so it's good to go.
All right. Karis, how do you follow that up?
Oh my gosh, that thing was horrible. What is it even? Can you even call it a film? You have this pun-a-second dialogue. You have bad acting. The storyline, it's a cheerleading movie for guys. It's soft porn. I don't know. It was like pointless. There was no point. You had the general idea of the girl that's smart, who has the brains, is actually the better way to go instead of the loose ones. But the whole thing, barely knew her. She was just kind of a side character. Even though that was kind of the whole general idea of the movie, you centered around all these loose, and you're degrading the whole women. You're degrading everyone. I don't know. I hated it.
Well, I would definitely say that I didn't enjoy the film. It did. I could see how people were making comparisons with it to American Pie, but it seems like it was a movie for teenage kids who want to watch that type of movie but aren't allowed to see a rated R movie. It was that type of. It was trying to be have that type of humor, but to keep it at a PG-13 rating. And I think the only thing that lets those other movies be any good at all is the fact that they can go so over the top with whatever they're doing. And this movie, it absolutely could not do that. I mean, with a PG rating, I don't really understand who their target audience was. I mean, that's such a small percentage of the population that should appeal to. I did not like it at all. It did have a couple of redeeming characteristics, one of which being the cinematography. I felt I was really impressed with some of the shots that it did, but that's almost the only good thing that I can find to say about it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't know. I was like, afterwards, I was like, can I gouge out my eyes and rip off my ears? Seriously, it was that bad. I usually, I can kind of put up with your typical American comedy, but not this one. This one, I don't know.
Yeah, the jokes were juvenile. I didn't like them. It was like watching American Pie if I was in the 7th grade. For the most part, like I was saying, Juliette Joglio, who plays Poppy, is the only saving grace in there. She was spot on with her acting, her conniving witticisms, and pretty much the only really time I was really laughing was when someone got hurt. But then I'm a really sick freak in that aspect anyways. If no, someone's not getting hurt, I'm not laughing. And, you know, seeing a cheerleader have her face get eaten by the concrete was rather amusing, but that was the only time that I laughed. Half the time I was sitting there with my pen wanting to just stab myself horribly. So, you know.
You know, I thought it had a couple of good jokes, but every time there was a decent joke, they would just drive it into the ground. You know,
Or
they'd do
they'd
it
follow
over
up.
and over.
Yeah, or they'd follow up with a bad one. You
Yeah.
kind of get a chuckle, and then all of a sudden it goes poof.
All of a sudden it was just, gosh, you know, obviously you weren't trying to make me laugh because...
You know, I didn't know they were still hiring high school kids to write movies these days. I mean, I know the economy's tough, but dang,
Is it
the
that
writing
tough?
was so bad in this movie.
It was.
The jokes are just horrible. I mean, John Michael Higgins, I love him. He was the only subpar character in this film. I mean, he's funny. I love him. With the F you.
He was funny. Actually, I like him in pretty much everything that I've seen him in, and he played a really good, you know, eccentric cheer coach, male
Yeah.
cheer coach. You know, he was more excited about it than his wife. You know, I thought he was one of the only funny people in the
But they
entire
had a
movie.
good idea with him, and then they just ran it to the ground. That too.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know.
I agree. No, I agree.
You know,
I
you
agree.
have him going F you 50 million times. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
we got
Yeah.
it. You know, let's move on. There was a lot of those kind of, we're just going to keep going here because we don't know what else to say with him. And that's, you know, well, it's even with the rest of the guys.
Okay,
I don't
so
know.
so really quick, bother with it or leave it.
Well, if you've already seen this movie, you saw something that was prohibitado. For those of you who haven't seen it, I wouldn't recommend it at all, unless you're between the ages of 16 and maybe child.
Levi?
Okay, Hollywood, I have a bone to pick with you on this. George Bush already contributed enough to the dumbing down of America. You don't need to either with films like this. I know that there's some clause in there that's making a bomb film, if you insure it enough, will actually bring you in more money than, say, a hit. But you don't need to be abusing this with all the economy the way it is and driving a whole nother industry into the ground, including yourself.
Okay, so Levi says forget it.
Yeah,
Karis?
forget it.
Pick it up and put it in the trash and never look back.
All right, Karis says forget it as well. I think, you know, if you're, like I said, in high school, 15 or 16 years old, your parents don't want you to see rated R movies, but you want to see a movie like that, then maybe you could bother with this. But other than that, forget it. All right. Moving on, after Fired Up, we have In Bruges that we're going to be talking about. It stars Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson.